At the turn of the tide, I can see an innate desire. Sword in hand, warriors side by side, I can feel it, it burns like fire. Worlds collide, an unstable landscape, side by side, but that's what this mandates. Be it might, and unlikely allegiance, we will fight because that's the best defense. No turning back for such is our path. This day we find a glorious death. Glorious death. Our goal, our mission is clear, as we ride against a dark empire. By my soul, may the last thing they hear be the roar of this great empire. Listen, be the savagery mindset. Night and day, we'll let loose and find it. Brutal will define our reaction. Rip out the throat of each one in their fashion. No turning back, for such is our path. This day we find a glorious
Gooding Services has a bundle for all budgets. You can be fully protected with emergency response for just $49.99.
And we are live. This is Braxcast time once again, or Braxcast live time once again. Hopefully you guys had a good week. We got Ram in the chat. Hopefully you're having a good one. Oh no, my life is still a mess. It was snowing today. I was out in the snow. Not fun. So yeah, my life is quite a freaking mess. Yeah, I think it's really always going to be at this point. Because like I am in a state of being that I did not expect I would be. Like this time last year, like I knew like I was on a big path because I was planning out the move and everything, but like what happened after that, the consequences of it, did not freaking imagine. But I'm not sure if I should be ranting about my personal life. Could be worse. You could have no power. Yes, that certainly is the case. Yeah, it's really too cold up here for these ice storms. And that's what really gets the power outages. You know, since you have the ice that weighs down the power lines, doesn't really happen up here in New England. Very fortunate to not have the power outages. Got Merklound in chat, and of course Andrew, Caffeinated Wolf, putting down the box wine to show up today. Yes. But yeah, I don't know. I guess one thing I was talking about like enlisting with the Marines, and like I took the next step in that. So I gave them my vitals on it was yesterday on Thursday. And about probably by this time next week, the recruiter's going to come back to me if I'm cleared to go to MEPS, that's Military Entrance Processing Station. And then they want to be over 2 days, but I'd have to take off work 2 days. So who knows? But anyways, I'd be like, well, I'd have to take off work. And I just did 2 days for these road trips. And it's like, well, if it helps, I can give you a letter that says you're under federal orders to report at this location at this time. Which actually might help. I might have to do that. Which at this point, like I'm gonna pursue it. And if I pass through MEPS, as in like I'm medically cleared, I passed the physical. Like this is the Marine Corps. This is the most strict in terms of the physical. Like I'm not I'm not joining the chair force. I'm kind of want Mike to be in the chat because like if I do, I have to get into like this mindset where like I have to insult every other every other branch of the mill other than the Marines, to insult all of them, like the chair force. Like I'm not trying to get into, if I could get into the chair force, no problem. I could do that like feeling like shit right now. Yeah, the Marines is going to be a little bit more challenging, just a little bit. I'm most concerned with just doing the run on time. Planking, push-ups, pretty good on that. ASVAB, I've got no issues with passing that. Little drug, breathalyze test me. Could be some stuff like my mental health history that they might, but I think I should be able to get in. And honestly, they don't, to my knowledge, all the research I've been doing, so they wouldn't even like consider, like he wouldn't have done the paperwork to be sent to MEPS if he didn't think I could like get approved to go to MEPS and pass it. But yeah, if I do this, guys, then that's like basically the end of Velvet Room Publishing for like 8 years. Because like I didn't list active duty, so I probably go to like Okinawa, Japan. That'd be cool to go to. And then I would just sign up to go on like basically wherever they want to send me in Japan. So I would ask about that. It's like, hey, is there any way I could go to have like a preference? Like if they need people in like Qatar or Iran from serving in Japan, is there a way to sign up for that or be put on a list to have that preference with those units? And I would be a POG, that's personnel other than grunt. So what I would get into would be, if I can, be MOS, military operational specialty 1142. So I would be an electrician with a core. And this is the thing where like send me to a combat zone and just make sure like the floodlights and the generators and all that stuff is working for like the ground team. And I'd still be like, again, if you're a Marine, you're trained to be a rifleman, you're trained to be a soldier, and then your specialty comes afterwards. Yeah, I gotta toughen up, man. That's the thing. You know, I am way too soft. And this whole like past couple of months, I liked having that softness in my life. It'd be nice, like to have like a woman in my life that was, this nurturing, soft place to land. I can't have that. If I can't have that, which is, okay, then I might as well just toughen up. Spend 8 years in the Corps having people just yell and berate the shit out of me, and I just throw it right back. Yeah, but like I said, we got shout out Merc Lounge. We got Zay Comics in the chat. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. So, not really too much Rippaverse news. Of course, Michael Malice is putting out a book on Rip Ascend, and seems like this is going to be really common where a lot of crap is going to be not crap. A lot of books are going to be coming out on Rip Ascend. I'm just not like really like this isn't covering Rip Ascend. I did cover like one thing on Rip Ascend when there wasn't like Daughter's Revenge when there wasn't really anything to talk about. Probably I'm not even sure what I'm going to do for Braxcast. It's completely like escaped my mind with like I said, there's a lot of like I've been sick this week, and this whole thing of just this massive like mental load that's been on my mind. And like I said, I'm really considering it. And like I said, I'm going with the steps through it. And if I get through MEPS, and they're like, hey, when you want to go to Paris Island, then I think that's it for me. I think that's a sign that's like what I'm supposed to do. And we'll just see how that goes for me. But then yeah, it'd be 13 weeks at Paris Island, and once I'm there, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm not quitting because like I'll quit my job, and I gotta make that shit work, man. But yeah, it's gonna be fucking brutal. But that's the whole point, is that you want to toughen up. You want it to be brutal. And honestly, I want to be like going to Paris Island like 1943, where they beat the shit out of you literally, and then send you to Japan. No, not as a base that we operate out of, like to fucking conquer it back, or fucking invade it, but not the mainland. All the islands. Because that was Pacific Front World War II. That's the experience I want. That's like the core I want to join. That like Nam. But like now it's a bit softer. Of course, you like women in the Corps and all that. But anyways, remove that. So that's like been on my mind. I talked about this a little bit. That's the thing. Like I said, there will be time. So again, I'm not even sure if like I'm going to be able to get make it make the cut. I might be there's a chance I'm the chaff that gets separated from the wheat. But we'll see. I do think for the most part, like I said, it's only like being able to run that. Let's see. Yo, guys. Hey, Joker. Maybe you should ask if Shine Comics would want you to come as a guest to talk Rippaverse. I don't have his contact information. I mean, that would be fun. I've heard him like going at EVS a little bit. That would be a fun thing to do. And, hopefully you are doing well, Garfield. So that would be a fun thing to do. Although I guess in the drama sphere, because like I kind of am. So if I fall off and stop making content, I know some guys are probably going to say like this is a win, or quote unquote, if like I even get mentioned. But it's like, hey guys, like I'm enlisted as a Marine. I don't have time for this shit anymore. Like I gotta grow up. I can't read comics and play games forever. Because I got shit to do. And I mean it'd be nice, man. Because like the amount of money I could save, I start out as an E2 because I have an associate's degree, and if I get that like MOS that I want, like I said, become an electrician with a core. Not only I think I'd be able to like get to like E3, E4 decently easily, then yeah, then like when I'm done with the core, I can become a journeyman electrician like that, and I'd be a journeyman electrician that has like 5 to 8 years of experience, like, and I'm a veteran. So fucking easy to get hired in that situation. And I would have like what over, I don't know, 5-ish years of like work experience. So, like I've got more than that of previous work experience, with warehousing jobs and working like Shake Shack and stuff like that. So it like I said, it would just like increase my ability to be hired, which would be nice. Like I said, I get the trades pretty easily. Maybe I stub. Well, I probably would do if I get deployed to any combat zone. Probably be more than stubbing my toe. Because I was asked like, have you ever been on any like disability? I was like, not yet. But in all seriousness, Shine is definitely into comics and is relatively new to Rippaverse. Would be an interesting conversation. Yeah, no, I think that would be a cool one. Because he probably could like ask me questions about like the books in general or like the lore of the Detractorverse, and I could give him some answers. I could give him some insight, and like I would give him insight into it from like not from like the EVS Comicsgate perspective, but from like someone who just again I will wholeheartedly admit I'm biased. Like I like the Rippaverse. I will. Not like I'm a white knight, like I have to defend Eric. He's a grown man. He can defend himself. But like, there's a lot of false accusations levied at the company. There's a lot of ridiculous narratives that go around and say, "Hey, this crap isn't true. These books are good." I had someone in the comments of the live saying, "Rippaverse sucks." I was just like, "Why?" I was like, "Read the books and then you'll find out." Like, you don't know who you're talking. Like, I've read and reviewed basically all of the books. The only book I haven't reviewed has been Alpha Core 1, and once Alpha Core 2 comes out, I will review that. Well, it will be the Alpha Core overview, but I have read anyways, I have read every single Rippaverse book. I have reviewed basically all of them. I've done I've made at this point like probably dozens to hundreds of hours of content about the Rippaverse. I know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Rippaverse. And I say I like it. You cannot like it. You can hate it. You can think it's garbage. That's fine, but that doesn't really matter to me. And it doesn't matter to a lot of people. Also, will be a great to give insight as a former Comicsgate supporter. Oh, are you talking about Shine or me? Those people are ironically saying, I guess you mean unironically, or whatever. They're saying read the books when they don't receive letters. Yes. Yes, that actually is quite funny. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is a lot of that audience is really more just drama farming rather than being genuine readers. Because Trashcast apparently isn't. He's done this before, where he's like, "Oh, I'm stopping Trashcast. I'm not doing Trashcast." I think now, like the money's drying up. That's what Soon of God was posting about. That's why it's going away. But anyways, there's one time where he mentioned, is it your boy Zach? People are like, "Who is he?" So yeah, they don't know the community, the comics community that formed initially. So it was like that when I was getting into it before the schism, however you want to say it, the form between the Rippaverse and all caps comics, because the audience back then, these were guys that were reading the books, engaging with the campaigns, and stuff was not chronically as late back then. So it seemed like EVS was like, "Hey, he's just late. He just needs to get his crap together, and he'll get his crap together. He'll get the books out. It'll all be good." But that has not been the case. It's only gotten worse. But anyways, like in lieu of any big Rippaverse news, I'm sure we'll get something next week. I'll come up with something. I'm going to sleep on it. We'll come up with something next week. But Volunteer's Hero was one of the winners of the Rippafest. So we're going to go through this video at 1.5 times speed. Unless anybody, well, actually, let's just do this now. So let's go through this video right now. We're going to press play.
Hello there, I am the Volunteerist Hero, but you can call me Hero. Thanks for clicking on the video. This is Excepts and the Gods of the Rippaverse. This is going to be a lore video entry for Rippafest. Now, a quick spoiler warning, this video contains some spoilers from the books. If you care about spoilers, you might want to click away. However, most of these spoilers are more lore related, and I'll try not to reveal too many major plot points. So if you're new to the Rippaverse and you just want to understand some of the lore, I think this video will be okay to watch. But if you really care about avoiding any spoilers at all, I recommend clicking away, reading the books, and then coming back. Now we got that out of the way, let's get into it. Accepts in the Rippaverse are probably the most crucial part of this superhero universe, yet they are also the most misunderstood. Across all different social media platforms, people constantly ask, what is an accept? And when people try to answer it, they often get it wrong. So let's start by answering the question. What are accepts? Accepts, simply put, are what the people of Earth call superhumans, individuals with special abilities. Accept is short for exceptional, and exceptional seems to be the official term used by most of the world. In Great War Separation #1, there's a scene where an accept named Zeno attacks a bunch of Mexican soldiers. These soldiers refer to him as exceptionalis, meaning exceptional. So the formal term seems to be exceptional, while the slang or colloquial term is accept. That term seems to be used primarily in the States, or at the very least in Texas. People instinctively try to compare accepts to Marvel's mutants, but a more accurate comparison would be DC's metahumans. It's a catch-all term. It doesn't necessarily describe how they got their powers or why they have them. It just identifies them as a special being. To quote Sandwan from ISO #1, when you're special, they call you an accept. But you and I know that's just a generalization. We differ in many ways. Different paths to being what we are, a scale. That's why I'm not fond of the term accept. It attempts to put people like us on the same plane. We are not equals. As Sandwan says, there are different ways to become an accept. If we simply
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that like I noticed. It's just like a very general term, like the accepts. I do tend to like that. It does kind of make the Rippaverse unique. I know Perfect 10 uses the term, well, not Perfect 10, the genuine verse, and I like the genuine verse. The character designs are great. I love the story Perfect 10. I love Dream Girl. But like meta normals, like it doesn't like hit the ear as correctly as we'll do 1.2. Oh, let's see. It does hit the ear as well as Excess does. So we were doing 1.25 speed as Andrew recommended. If you laid off the Franzia, Andrew, you'd be able to keep up. That's all I'm saying. Man. We will get back into the video. So let's go. But yeah, no, I like that so far. But yeah, this is well done. Definitely deserved to be the winner of the lore contest so far. And this does seem to be pretty in-depth, and I do like that. I mean, that's like a foundational quote of like the of explaining accepts is like Santuan talking. It's like if for us, vets of the Rippaverse. When we read that was a big thing. Exactly. Solari got his power through experimental procedures, while Isom got his through his mother's bloodline from a distant ancestor implied to be thousands of years ago. Both are accepts. Yes. And then also, of course, got Bloodroof having her powers through that, like Yaira just being like an alien being along with Zalen. So you've got like all of that as well. So it can be like experimentation. It can be like through your bloodline. Being human, it could just be like an alien that is like not that of rate of people that are just inherently superpowered. That's Yaira's race. So Yeshua is the same way as well. You've got Zalen, who seems to basically have been like an alien that was like created to be this like extremely overpowered being. So yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. But let's continue with the video.
simplify it, there are two main categories: those who were born with powers and those who become powered later in life. But even within these categories, there are many differences. See, if we take characters who were born with their powers, characters like Avery Silman, aka Isom, Stefania from Yaira, Sydney Bloodruth from, Bloodruth, and Ingrid Valdez and Blue Shift, those last two haven't been confirmed to be.
Well, Stefania wasn't really born with her powers. She kind of just gets them imbued to her. Whether or not that, I don't think that was explained in Yaira 3. How or Yaira 2, that she was an ancestor of Yaira, but as if you read Yaira 1, it's established that none of her children that she had with Gorm, I believe is his name, had her powers. So her powers weren't like they could only be passed down genetically if she had kids with one of her race. So if she had kids with Yeshua, then their kids would be like them. But this isn't like being a Viltrumite where no one finds a human woman, has one kid, and then he gets his powers. Which the fact that like with how like apparently like virile the Viltrumites are, it's so weird that Nolan has only one kid. Well, technically two, but you know what I mean. Only one with Debbie, I believe, and then only having another, and then Mark only has one kid with Eve, with Adam and Eve. Even though like it's established that she basically can't die of old because she gets old, and then she basically, as she's dying of old, just de-ages herself. So they should have been able to have like a bunch of kids. So that's like, but it's like, oh, you would have to make Ryan Otley draw more, and you have to like Robert Kirk would have to come up with names for these people and give them like page time. I can see why they didn't do it, but it would have been fun if they had big families. But like Mark having like more siblings would have complicated the story, so it made sense why he was an only child until that time. Let's see. Stefania's power could have been a recessive trait, like having blue eyes in a family filled with brown eyes, extremely rare gene. A based blue shift mentioned. Of course, Andrew is going to say that. I 100% agree. We haven't gotten Rippaverse 5 yet, so we can't confirm anything about blue shift and like how he got his powers. And of course, Andrew's not going to say that's under NDA. And I'm skeptical that the blue shift tryout story, if I'm remembering correctly, will give us that insight. But we'll keep watching.
Born with their powers, but let's just assume that they are. So even among these characters, their origins differ from each other. Ingrid's wirecasting and Zephyr's speed might simply be a result of genetic anomalies. But a character like Isom is very unique. People often get confused about whether he's an Except because of the hospital scene in Isom #1. After the infamous scene where Isom was dropped onto a car by Yaira, he was hospitalized. And at that hospital, a nurse and a doctor have a conversation. The nurse states that none of their initial tests confirmed Avery was an Except. The doctor responds saying that doesn't mean he isn't one, just that their database does not include every type of special being. So this scene doesn't prove Isom isn't an Except. It shows he likely is, but they've never encountered one like him before. Isom's powers are unique in that they are born from the fact that he is descended from someone who was healed by Christ or one of his disciples in Galilee. That healing granted a blessing passed through the generations. Only one person in each.
Yeah, this is actually a good point that Hero brings up. Not necessarily being healed by Christ directly in the earthly ministry. It could have been one of the apostles, because that's something, is that the apostles were given power to perform miracles. It's something you can read in the Gospels. So that's a really good point. Didn't necessarily have to be Jesus, but like, I don't know, saying in Galilee, it kind of implies it was Christ. But of course, it's something like, it would be cool to do a Young Isom series that's drawn by Jack Herbert that starts with a deeper explanation of this. So that's all I'm saying. Again, whenever we talk about Isom and his past, the Young Isom series by Jack Herbert, which my support on, of course, if I enlist to be a Marine, none of this matters. Because I would be a fucking nerd anymore. But like, again, it's something I would really love to see. It would be a great thing for the community. And I know Eric is aware of these streams. I know he knows that I make this content. Hopefully he has written that down somewhere and he is intending to do it. I'm just saying, Eric, it'd be a good idea. And I know what we have established, that I know what I'm talking about. And this guy does too. Hero's doing great work. So he only has 22 subs. I put the link, and I'll put it again. So, make sure some of you guys like give him a sub. Like this video, watch some of his content, give him some watch time, and just let's get him up to like, I don't know, at least maybe there's 8 people in this stream. I know some of you guys are like, it seems like most of you guys are on Twitter. So we already have Cain enabled in the Rippaverse. Would Jesus make an appearance eventually? I think it could. With Bloodroof and Isom Free established that, like I said, Christianity. Of course, I'm a believer, so I subscribe to the fact that the Old and New Testament are, historical realities, and that's true in the Rippaverse as well. So how you integrate that with, like aliens and Excepts and stuff like that, like it's not going to be like the most like orthodox thing, but it's still cool, and it's still like even like if the Chosen is like not really theologically sound, or it's not like the best thing, it's still a lot better to watch The Chosen than it would be to watch like Euphoria or Sex in the City or all this extreme nonsense. So I think it's still good for the culture, even if like it's not the most theologically sound thing, and it's not going to be like the most like right minded thing. Of course, that's my perspective being Orthodox. I got a completely different paradigm, but for a lot of people who are like Protestant or evangelical, This stuff is just like very much so jive with them. But yeah, I think Jesus could make an appearance. Like I said, if you do a Young Isom series, and you start it with like whoever was injured, of course, I was thinking of like seated Matthew, whatever it was. But I was, thinking where he went to Syria and heal, and Galilee is not the same region at all. So yeah, so Galilee. It could be him in Capernaum because I believe Capernaum was in Galilee. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole, so you definitely could have Jesus having an appearance, and healing this directly. But like Hero, and it's a really good point that Hero brought up that I hadn't thought of, is that it could have been one of the apostles. So this could have been like Peter. This could have been like Matthew or Thomas or whoever, like healing healing this person, and then that's how the powers start. But who knows? We'll continue with the video.
Each generation receives this blessing. In the previous generation, Avery's mother, Harriet Silman, inherited it and became what's called a peaker, and that's what Isom is. Peakers have superhuman strength, durability, agility, and a healing factor. If one scene in Isom 3 is interpreted correctly, Peakers may also be able to resist certain Axe abilities. In the final fight of Isom 3, he was able to completely nullify the effects of Jasmine's time dilation ability. The full scope of Peaker abilities has yet to be revealed, so we'll have to wait and see what's possible. Now, even though Avery was born into the bloodline, he still had to earn his power, as stated by Harriet in Isom 3. He did not come out of the womb with abilities. When Avery was young, during the Great War of Separation, there was a U.S. government attack on Flores Park. Avery was unfortunate enough to encounter one of the mechanized XF soldiers named Newt. His mother arrived, using her Peaker abilities to stop Newt and save Avery. Though she was holding her own, the XF eventually threw a car on top of her. Avery, thinking she was about to die, ran in to help her, completely unaware of his family's bloodline or the fact that he had powers. In that moment of self-sacrifice, he gained them, or he peaked, as Harriet put it. He became capable of ripping off a metal mask and drawing blood from a very durable XF. Because Isom's powers are morality-based, it makes sense that he earned them through an ultimate act of goodness. In Isom number 3, his powers weaken because to use them at full potential, his intentions and actions must align with each other. He must do the right thing for the right reasons. Stefania, by contrast, is the descendant of Yaira, an extraterrestrial. Her powers activated not through moral action, but through a self-preservation response after being shot during a robbery. Her ability triggered out of extreme distress. Interestingly, Stefania is currently the only one of Yaira's many descendants who has manifested her powers. Based on the lore from Yaira number 1, Yaira came to Earth a long time ago, fell in love, and had children. Those children had children, and then those children had children, and so on. And there are likely many descendants of Yaira walking around Earth, but only Stefania has inherited actual powers. When you look at a character like Sydney Bloodruth, she was also born with power. She belongs to a cursed bloodline believed to be descended from Cain. Her ability, blood magic, appears to come simply from being part of this lineage. To reiterate, even among people born with powers, the sources vary widely. Genetic mutation, blessed ancestry, alien ancestry, cursed lineage, and possibly more. I suspect that a large portion of XFs on Earth are born into it in some way. But of course, there is the other kind as well. We see examples of man-made XFs in Great War Separation number 2. We learn Brian Solari gained his powers through experiments conducted by an organization called TEX-RAMA, Texas Research and Military Applications. To be eligible for this experiment, candidates must possess certain genetic markers indicating.
You think we're at the point where like I'll get signed up for this? Or are we that sci-fi yet? Like, man, I hope so. I mean, I want to fly around. Yeah, no, I'm very skeptical something like that would happen. But it's fun to think of, and of course, like I really love this idea. One of my, I grew up with the original, phase 1 of the MCU, which ended with the Avengers, right? So Captain America, that came out 11 or so. I love that movie, Captain America: The First Avenger, and I just love the whole how he got his powers, right? That really appealed to me. And so reading Great War Separation, that it really felt like that. but it was also its own like unique spin on it, and the fact that there was this whole team of people as well. And then we have Brian Solari, who's this character we already know, and we're getting his origin story. That was really, really cool as well. So I do like how Solari got his powers. Of course, like this implication, having like the Texrama program means that like this technology exists, and there's most likely other man-made accepts. So we'll see if we have more of that, especially since Great War separation took place like what, 20-ish years ago, it seems. Probably a bit more than that. So yeah, definitely like that. So we're going to continue that. Now, I do like the point that like even if you're born with the powers, as talking about Sophia, Isom, Bloodroof, that like how you get it through your status of birth differs. Brian also has similar values and integrity. He didn't want to put his team through the experimentation without him going first. Yeah, that's a great sign of a leader, is that like, hey, I'm leading, so I'm doing it first, right? So yeah, Brian has this moral compass. Of course, like he's not like, especially you see in Alpha Core 1, when he's just like, hey, let's just plug the device into the eagle's nest and see what fucking happens. Wasn't the most like he's pretty brash, so he does have character flaws, so he's not this perfect person, but this is what makes a good character. And this is like, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding. Like a hero isn't meant to be perfect. And a hero isn't always meant to be like making the right decisions all the time. A hero is meant to have like this code that they follow. And of course, like Isom had abandoned following that code, and he's like just getting back into it. And this is what Isom 3 is basically there, is that like, hey, you weren't doing it for the right reasons. You aren't in it. Your heart isn't in it for the right reasons. That's why he got weakened, and then he realizes that he's on this redemptive path. Like that's character development, right? Whereas Brian Solari, he has that. It's just that he's not perfect in other senses. So you can't have a character that's like 100% perfect all the time. Of course, like like you have Superman, who basically is that, but even then, I'm sure I haven't read too much Superman. Apparently, my grandmother did pass away, but she had a whole bunch of old comic books, and she told me she read comics back in like, she read Superman back in like 1939 when she was like 8. So she has a bunch of like really old comic books, and those are on my way to me. My parents, were there, and they were cleaning out her place, and they found all these, like, you want these? I'm like, yeah, I want them. So I'm gonna get a whole bunch of like old comic books, like Marvel, DC, like stuff from like it looks like probably stuff from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, man. So I'm really freaking excited to go through that. But anyways, so I'll get my knowledge pumped up a little bit. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, Brian Solari. Brian definitely comes across who follows the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. Yeah, definitely. And that's again, it's a beneficial mindset to have, but it does lead to problems. As you see, like you read Alpha Core 1, his mindset, it does have some pretty dire consequences. And I imagine in 2 and in 3, which, number 3 is coming soon, right? That's going to have its problems as well. But anyways, let's continue on with the video.
Exceptional potential. They go through a series of therapies where they are bombarded with ions based on materials already present in the human body, which activates dormant exceptional DNA factors, turning them from off to on. Side note, these exceptional factors might have been what the doctors in ISOM number 1 were looking for in their testing. But moving on. However, within this method, not all subjects get the same powers. Some gain energy emission, others super speed, others a form of psychic powers, etc. This was, of course, an intentional method. We also have accidental cases, such as Ron Hodges, aka Splatterpuss, who, in Gooding the Polymath, gained powers in a freak accident at a gain-of-function lab during his first mercenary mission. His power lets him manipulate the rate of heartbeats and blood circulation in himself and others through physical contact. He can cause hemorrhaging to the point of death, thus he's able.
Garfield is saying, Chuck definitely seems to be trying to tie Alpha Core and Horseman directly with each other. Oh, especially it seems like an Alpha Core 3 Horseman will make an appearance, which makes sense. And of course, Horseman or Alpha Core appearing in basically the entire Horseman series. Like we have They appear at the end of they appear in Horseman number 1. Can't remember they're in Horseman number 2. And Brian Solari is also. I mean, oh yeah, Brian Solari's in Welcome to Forest Park, and they do save him at the end of Welcome to Forest Park. So yeah, Horseman and Alpha Core, they're very tied together very closely. It's going to continue to be the case. And I'm definitely for it. I love crossovers like that. It's one that makes a lot of sense, especially if they're basically going to be like vigilantes as well. So like they're going to be like kind of like aligned in that sense. Just really like that. Anyways, let's continue.
To kill with a touch. In the short story Catch and Kill from Rippaverse number 4, we learned that Betty Brooke is an Except who can also kill with a touch. She didn't have powers until an incident occurred in a place called the Wastelands. We don't know much about this place or what occurred there, but it seems to be a location where people can gain abilities. The Wastelands are referenced in teasers for Detention Crew, leading to a theory that most, if not all, of the Detention Crew members have gained powers from this place as well. We don't know this for sure till we read the story, but there is something going on there, and I can't wait to learn more. Excepts also include beings from other worlds. Yaira is explicitly and
now, is the Wastelands, is that location that's referred to as a dead zone that forms from the Great War of Separation? It's a decent chance it is. That might be what they're talking about with the Wastelands. Now, in Rippaverse number 6 with Shadows of Typherion, whatever that story is called, I think that's the Wastelands they're talking about. Just holding that out there.
Extraterrestrial. But as far as Earth is concerned, she might as well just be an Except. She's humanoid and can do things humans normally can't. So she's treated as an Except within Earth's classifications. It's likely the case for the members of Norfolka as well. Now, returning to Santuan's quote from earlier, apart from the different paths to become an Except, he also mentions a scale. And in Alpha Core number 1, Officer Wilkins, rest in peace, mentions the Schuster scale, likely named after Joe Shuster, one of the creators of Superman. Based on what little we know, it likely functions similarly to the Richter scale, but instead of measuring earthquakes, it measures the powers of Excepts. We haven't been given many details in the canon about the Schuster scale yet, so I think I'm going to take this opportunity in this video to speculate and theorize about how the Schuster scale might work. This is what I've come up with. Looking at this as a purely in-universe mechanic, it's probably something developed by scientists or government institutions. If that's the case, I feel like the main thing the Schuster scale would measure is damage potential. What I mean by damage potential is how much destruction someone using only their ability could cause if left unchecked for about half an hour. Because of the variety of Except powers, I don't think it can be as simple as Except A can be Except B, therefore A ranks higher on the scale. Due to how Except abilities work, it's a giant game of rock, paper, scissors. Some powers counter, nullify, or can be totally useless against other powers. Just like rock beats scissors, scissors cuts paper, but rock can't beat paper. So the most consistent metric to measure would be destructive capability. I've taken some time to create a whole layout for the Schuster scale. Probably ranks from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. And for fun, I've divided the scale into different tiers. From lowest to highest, you have the mundane tier, the street tier, the colossal tier, the cataclysm tier, and the doomsday tier. Let's start at the bottom with the mundane tier, which covers ratings 1 and 2 on the Schuster scale. These are Excepts with exceptional abilities, but little to no destructive output. They have human-level durability and destructive capability. They might as well just be human based solely on their damage potential. Wilkins said he was a 2 on the Schuster scale, and I agree, at least at the beginning of Alpha Core number 1, meaning he's mundane tier. Salvage, who has enhanced hearing, is an Except, but likely a 1 on the scale, since with just his ability alone left unchecked, he can't really do anything more than a human can.
We don't know if Salvage has more than his hearing. Although I think on the Dokemon card, I'm not sure if it mentions that. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine I would probably put Salvage as like a 2, maybe a 3 on the Schuster scale, because like he does have like a pretty good skill set, so he might be slightly stronger than like an average man would be. But yeah, with just the advanced hearing. But we haven't read Lethal Force yet, so we don't really have that hard-on knowledge. I'd have to get his Dokemon card. I have it right there. So Zan would probably break the Schuster scale. In fact, the free radical Schuster scale would Schuster scale ranking tier list would be a fun stream. Yeah, that would be a fun stream to do if I took like what I thought We can go from. I would like to use like this one, so he's going like mundane, and then we'll see how this goes. And of course, Mike has bad knees is in the Twitter chat. I just checked my Twitter, and he's like he heard the chair force joke. Good, you know, aim high. But like I said, you know, since I'm on that path, if I do enlist with the Marine, then like I'm contractually obligated to make those jokes, especially if I get in to share force. Like again, I'm gonna be sleeping in the mud, you know, and like you're figuring out like how many stores, you know, what hotel you have, and, you know, flying a desk, man, that's not that hard. But honestly, I do respect it. Honestly, I guarantee you, if I do go through with it, let's say my training starts on a Monday, probably before 9 a.m. on that Monday, I'm going to think to myself, I should have joined the Air Force. I just want to hear a lot, but yeah, it's just like the thing is like I just really want to toughen up, and that's the whole thing is that like that's where you toughen up is on Paris Island, and then go into active duty with the Marines. So that's like what's driving me. It's a lot of that, and of course, like the secondary thing is that like if I do it correctly and if I can get the MOS that I want, then I can actually have a good career set for me, and I can have years where I have like I don't have to pay rent because like I don't have to pay rent. I don't really have to pay that much money to like feed myself, if any. I think I get like a stipend, but I can eat very cheaply, and I would be I'd be able to save like thousands of dollars. Like I'd be able to come out of it like you know $50,000 to $100,000 richer, which would be nice. And I could use that to like buy property and do a whole bunch of good things. We got Anthony Bucket in the chat. Nice to see you. So we're watching this video, Accepts and Gods of the Rippaverse by Volunteer as Hero. We're about halfway through it. So once this is over, I'm going to end the stream. Let's keep on going.
Next up is the street tier at ratings 3 and 4. This covers those capable of inflicting significant damage and being a danger to life, but not a threat to a large-scale area. It's reasonable to think that most Accepts fall in this range. I'd say Accepts like Sturm and Blitz are in this category. They're definitely more dangerous than a human, but still not a large-scale threat. My personal favorite character, Bloodruth, would probably be here as well, perhaps a 4 on the scale. I'd also put Betty Brooke and Splatterpuss in this tier, probably level 3. They can obviously do more damage than a human, though I did consider if they fit more in the mundane tier, but because of how deadly their powers are, I think they are best put at level 3 in the street tier. Even though, hypothetically, if their powers can work on anybody, their powers could kill someone like Brian Solari or Yaira, both of whom would be way higher on the scale, and they could take them down with a touch. But remember, damage potential is the metric. Left unchecked, they simply can't cause as much destruction as Brian Solari or Yaira. Next is ratings 5 and 6, which are the Colossal tier. These Accepts, if left unchecked, could level entire city blocks, multiple blocks, and potentially, and that's a big maybe, city-wide destruction. I put characters like Isom, Santuan, and Lapredo here, who all are 6s by my assessment. I think physically superhuman characters, basically those with super strength and durability, will usually fall between the range of 3 and 6 on the scale. Most of them would top out at Colossal tier, and I think this is simply because these types tend not to have range. I'd also put Braxwell in this tier, as well as Billy Bob Quinn, aka Barbecue. Ingrid.
Braxwell breaks the Schuster scale. This is like I'm holding myself back from just like walking off from this video. I'm kidding. I think that's pretty accurate. But Braxwell, like, of course, I'm a Braxwell fanboy. So, but yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. But Braxwell can do a lot of damage. He's got that durability. But we will see.
It is tricky. Her whips are extremely dangerous and far-reaching, so she could be a 5, but since she doesn't have extreme durability, I think she might fit better at the high end of the street tier at 4, but that's open for discussion. Now, at rating 7 and 8, we get the Cataclysm tier. These Xeps easily have citywide or even multi-citywide destructive ability, comparable to natural disasters. Brian Solari could be a 6 in the Colossal tier, but an argument could be made that he belongs in the Cataclysm tier at 7. His durability and flight ability really push him upward. He's harder to stop, and if he were only just strong and durable, he'd probably be a Colossal, but flight allows him more destructive mobility. Yaira is for sure an 8. Whether or not you think her and Brian are evenly matched, with her ability to manipulate the atmosphere and control weather, she can do way more damage unchecked than Brian Solari ever could. Stefania would also be an 8, higher than Solari, but even though Solari could probably beat her, she has Yaira's powers. If left unchecked, she could do as much damage as Yaira can by fully unleashing her abilities. Now, Shadran might be one of those few strength-type exceptions who could be put on this tier of the scale, although he strikes me as a character who might possess World Breaker Hulk levels of strength, and if that's the case, he might actually...
Well, the thing with Blitz is that he's got that strength. So Hector, he really doesn't have the ability to outpower like any except unless we're talking about like if you're like a 2 on the Schuster scale, then Hector can pretty. So like if it's Hector versus Salvage, Hector probably could win that fight pretty easily, or at least it would be a much more evenly matched than it was against Blitz. But someone like Blitz, just having like a basic level of strength, like he can't really deal with it. Maybe we'll see as Hector like develops like the arsenal. He's got his stable. I forget the stallion. Yeah. Well, the stallion, of course, if like, you could probably Hector and the stallion could probably like, run over Blitz and Sturm and be just fine. But like, when he's boots on the ground, that's it. Rangers lead the way, right? So yeah, I mean that's one thing with like the army. Another thing. Apparently you can transfer branches, but like I said, I'm going through the Marines if I do that. But yeah, at this point, like it's solidly in my mind to do this, even though like I know there's a lot of people who wouldn't want me to. Like I think like I tell my parents I'm going to do this. I haven't told anything. I've told some people. The one person I told, it's a person I'm not friends with anymore. But at the time, I'm just like, I would miss you, which is like one of the reasons I thought maybe it would work out, but it didn't work out. So not that like I don't have anything keeping me here. I like being a New Englander. I like my life as a civvy. But it'd be nice to just like have that next grand adventure. And then after that I come back and like I said, battle hardened. I have many more skills under the belt. I've got a lot of money. And I'll be in my mid-30s. So, I mean, I guess theoretically, I could, do all of that and then find a wife. And I mean, I know 100% there are women that would probably love that version of me. But the whole thing is that like, I can already barely put up with that. Like again, I like that softness, but at the same time, dealing with women, it's just really annoying because women are just so. Like they're so different, and that's the charm of it all. But it's just like I had to wake up next to one every single day of my life and have her like complaining that like you don't understand me or you're not you're not doing this right, and I'm like I'm just sitting here. Like what are you talking about? It's like oh you don't know what I mean, and I had this like you don't understand what I meant when I said that. How else was I supposed to take it? And like that was like a consistent thing that was happening with me. I'm probably ripping my head out. In Horseman 2, Horseman did win against that X-Step dude with the muscles, but Hector was severely damaged and almost killed. Yeah, I mean he lucked out. He basically used the grenades. I forgot his name, but he basically used the grenades, jumped out the window, and he broke a bunch of his ribs. So he barely won that. But yeah, being able to like walk away. But I think that's something that Hector's probably never really going to be like. He's never going to be able to take care of an Accept in the same way Braxwell took care of like Blitz and Sturm, right? He's never going to be able to do that, and that's the charm of the story. That's like one of the draws of the story. That's a very limited black pilled version of marriage. Yeah, no, I'm kind of joking. Like, marriage is a consecrated friendship, and again, I have learned it's possible to be, friends with women. I'm very wounded right now when it comes with that, and I was always wounded with that, with like how much of a loner I am, and how like again, I've talked about this. I shouldn't really talk about this, but it's not like I'm not like closed off to it, but for me personally, it's like I'd rather not. So yeah, Garfield has to go. Hopefully, have a good night. But anyways, like I'm very like I don't know. I am feeling a bit like nihilistic, and again, or a bit fatalistic when it comes to that. And like one of the things is like, oh, I mean, it's kind of like the mindset. I don't want to say have to, but it's like one of the mindsets. Like, yeah, like if I'm going to enlist, I'm going to do this, and I have to have like a really hard view of my life. And it's like, yeah, because like I wouldn't want to, again, military. There are women in the military. There are women in the Marine Corps, which I don't like, but whatever. But anyways, it's going to be like 97% good men. I'm going to be basically around a bunch of men. Especially like if I'm on like active deployment, I'm sure if I will be in combat situations, that most likely I won't be, because like the Army, the Pentagon is really shying away from doing stuff like that, and it's less about these big kinetic battles. So it's not like you get drafted and then you go through basic and then you get shipped off to Vietnam or Korea or Iraq or how it well. By the time I was Iraq, you would just enlist, but you know what I mean. That's really something that's being shied away from, and now it's more or less just more strategic stuff using unmanned warfare, talking about like what the Space Force is doing and all that stuff. Which I don't know how you get in the Space Force, man. They're crazy. But anyways, let's continue with the video.
Actually belong in the next tier. At the top is the Doomsday tier. At ratings 9 and 10, these are powers capable of nuclear level destruction, continental or even global destruction. I assume someone like Zaylan probably belongs here, although considering he's a cosmic level hero, this might not even be enough. There might need to be a separate scale for someone like Zaylan. Though I doubt Earth scientists and or governments created the Schuster scale with someone like Zaylan in mind. There are things that might not be fully accounted for using this system. For example, someone like Benny, who can manipulate behavior through suggestion, would probably be mundane tier at 2 on the scale or low street tier at 3. If he were to control someone powerful like Brian Solari, he would technically gain higher damage potential, but that's only because he's using another powerful accept. So Benny likely still belongs at 2 or 3 on the scale. It's also possible to climb higher on the scale over time. Many accept abilities seem to act as a muscle. As we see in Alpha Core number 1, Wilkins clearly increased his Schuster scale rating, becoming strong enough to stop the Eagle's Nest when it was crashing into the police headquarters. He's possibly at that point a high-end Colossal, maybe even Cataclysm tier. Isam's powers also seem to be the type to improve, as evidenced in Isam 1 when he said, "I've trained my body to do things people like me shouldn't be able to do." He's also clearly a lot stronger by the end of the Ill-Advised arc than at the beginning. It's possible that he might grow to Cataclysm or even Doomsday tier. Now, how I've described this scale, it can be used primarily for operational purposes. If Alpha Core is notified about a rogue accept, they might receive the Schuster scale ratings to prioritize the response. And Yara number 1, Yanessa and Yantoni, aka the worst villains in the Rippaverse, were probably in the Cataclysm tier. So lethal force authorization had to be given by Solari. A level 9 or 10, aka a Doomsday tier, threat might require taking them down even if civilian casualties occur. If an accept could wipe out an entire state or even the world, they would have to neutralize it no matter what, or it's over. I'd love to see a storyline exploring this harsh scenario. Of course, all of this is speculation and theory crafting, a potential way this scale might be used. Although the tiers are my own creation, if it's not made canon, I'll be cool if the fandom adopts this for power scaling this universe. I didn't mention every accept in the series, and I didn't go into too much detail with my justifications for their placement, so let me know in the comments if you like it and where you would put certain accepts in my version of the Schuster scale. Nevertheless, I hope we get more info about the scale in later Rippaverse stories. Now, this scale would just be one part of how accepts are dealt with in this universe. Accepts seem to be a typical part of this world. The general populace knows about them. Some accepts are criminals, some live everyday lives, some are law enforcers, vigilantes, and even offer paid services. Some hide in plain sight, as we see in Great War Separation number 2. Some are in mental hospitals and asylums. But there is a question that can arise when looking at this. A question I recall someone once asked on a Rippaverse post: who was the first accept? They believed answering this would help us understand what accepts truly are. And I don't necessarily agree. It's fascinating, but I think the better question is, who was the first identified accept? Since an accept is simply someone with exceptional abilities and supernatural elements clearly exist in the Rippaverse, including the biblical god Yahweh being confirmed as real, then supernatural acts by humans throughout history can be seen as exceptional feats. So the first accept as defined might not be traceable. There have likely always been accepts. For instance, the Peakers in Isam's bloodline have existed since the time of Christ at least. If one Peaker is born in each generation, then at any given point in human history, there would have been 2, 3, maybe 4 Peakers on the planet. However, Peakers are so secreted that even Bloodruth, an expert in supernatural matters, thought they were a myth. With that, I present the theory that there may have been a period in history where superhumans weren't known at all. If they were, it was as legends or folk tales.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that makes sense. And I'm very sneezing right now, so subsided for now. Thank you. But anyways, yeah, no, I agree. This idea of there being like the first more like the first identified acceptance. The question is like, when did like it become a thing in the milieu of the Rippaverse universe's culture that accepts became a theme? Like when, like in the Schuster scale was a thing. That's a better question to ask, and I agree with Hero here.
In that time, humans lived under the assumption that humans can't fly, punch through walls, become living volcanoes, or summon storms. Until someone in maybe the early modern era publicly displayed an exceptional ability, and at that moment could have brought about the term exceptional, exposing the world to special beings. Now, you've probably noticed this video is called Accepts and the Gods of the Rippaverse. There's a reason for this. While reading Bloodruth number 1, there's a scene where Bloodruth goes to a church to stock up on holy items before fighting demons. Gooding asks, "I thought you said you were good to go." Sydney replies, "Do churches make you uncomfortable, Gooding? That's just too bad. I take great comfort in them." Gooding decides to wait outside while she goes. Now, this small exchange between Sydney and Cato made me wonder, does Gooding believe in God? Or does he look at supernatural events as merely bizarre scientific phenomena in a universe filled with special beings? As shown in Bloodruth number 1, biblical accounts are clearly real. In Norfolka, Glorious Death, we see Norse and African mythologies are real to some extent. So what room is there for atheism or disbelief in this universe? I think accepts might create room for doubt. See, if superhumans existed and modern Rippaverse residents find it possible that they've always existed, someone might look at biblical miracles and think, hey, Jesus turning water into wine? Probably an accept with matter manipulation. Moses parting the Red Sea? Clearly a genetic mutation that granted hydrokinesis. Samson's strength? Just another brute type accept like we see all the time. Even gods of pagan...
Even stuff like, there's like resurrection, of course, like, you know, Christ resurrecting, you know, makes it a bit harder. But of course, something like, you know, Elisha's bones. So when Elisha dies, his bones are in the tomb, and then an Israelite, I believe, falls on them, and he gets revived. He comes back to life. And that could be seen like, oh, it's just like an accept power. So again, I feel like this would give like atheism like a like place within the Rippaverse where people think like, oh, they read the Bible and they think like, yeah, all the biblical miracles are just like accepts performing them rather than like a God existing. But it does seem like there are genuine believers. And of course, like if you go into the theology of Christianity, like there's a lot more that Jesus did than just like the miracles themselves. And what you think about miracles is that like everything like is like a miracle is like, oh, it's like God changing. Like, no, God does everything. So if the sun rises, that's a miracle. That's like it's not like miraculous in the way you understand a miracle, but it's still God doing it. A miracle is just God acting in your life differently than he usually would. And there has to be regularity, or else you wouldn't do anything. Like if you got out of bed and you floated up on some days and you fell to the ground, other days you wouldn't want to get out of bed because you wouldn't know what would happen. So there has to be a regularity in reality, or else you wouldn't do anything. And that's, I don't know, but that's a whole. I listened to some catechism lectures, and that's one thing that really stands out to me. But there's a lot more to what Christ did, rather than just like turning water into wine, and even like resurrecting Lazarus or healing people. Even though all that stuff was important, it was necessary. A lot of it was combining or unifying the divine nature to the human nature, and that's a big reason for the incarnation, is that the Word became flesh, as to heal fallen human nature. That was the only way it could be done. You read On the Incarnation by Athanasius. That's a really good explainer on why the incarnation happened. So there's more to it than that. And I think that's an argument that certainly, hopefully, would exist in the Rippaverse universe. It is like something that's acknowledged. So I think that still is like a pretty good theory as to like why that wouldn't exist. But the whole idea of like Yahweh, like the supreme uncreated God, the Trinity existing and being the sustainer of all things, like to me, I don't know, it kind of feels a bit incompatible. But I mean, technically, you can still have like little g gods. There usually are referred to as demons. So like Exceps could be like in that category. It's just like it's very weird to try and like meld that all together. But we'll keep on this. We've got like 5 minutes left, and then I am getting off the stream.
Religions could all be ancient Exceps, and primitive man simply didn't realize it. In Yaira number 1, Yaira tells her children what I assume are stories from her homeworld, and those stories mirror Roman mythologies almost exactly. Like the story of Saturn fearing his children's rise to power, so he ate each child as soon as they were born. This might have inspired all of the Roman myths. The Roman god Neptune is revealed to be one of Yaira's kind, who came to Earth before she arrived and was thought to be dead, killed by his father Saturn. His story with his wife and the many pairs of twins that they had matches Roman mythology verbatim. In the myth of Atlantis, as recounted by Plato, Neptune fathered 5 sets of male twins with the mortal woman Cleito, the firstborn of whom was Atlas. So, at the very least, Roman mythology in the Rippaverse might come directly from alien history. So with that, there's plenty of room to dismiss the divine and supernatural. However, it's possible there are those in the Rippaverse that acknowledge all these beings and occurrences as real, whether they be scientific or supernatural or divine. Gods, aliens, Exceps, in the mind of some could be all one in the same. I mean, how miraculous is walking on water when the average Forest Park resident witnesses a man in a cape soaring through the sky on the regular?
This stuff is fair, but like the bigger question to me, especially if we're talking about Christianity, is like not the existence of like supernatural beings that become thought of divine, is like, does the universe have a creator? Is there an uncreated being that created the universe and sustains it? And that question fundamentally would still exist, and you would still have the same philosophical reasons to deny it as you would have to deny atheism in this reality, right? So I think that question is still there. Of course, like this is getting like really philosophical. That a bit more philosophical than you would want to on like a comic book stream, but that's where my mind is at. But I think he's making really good points. I don't think Hero is like making like bad points, and I think this is much more like the way the layman would view it, and I think it's a great perspective to have. And I'm not like, oh, I'm so super intelligent, but this is like where my mind is at, is like that fundamental question, and I imagine people would still be asking that. And I think the idea of like Exceps like existing as being like a little bit like irrelevant to that question of is there one supreme uncreated God? Not are there created beings that can be thought of like these divine gods, same way like these demigods, like you're thinking like Roman mythology. Of course, like Greek mythology comes from Roman mythology, so I'm sure you should have something like Hercules, who would be like a child of one of these people, like Achilles, and you have Samson's strength in the Bible. You've got all those sorts of things. But anyways, let's finish off strong.
So this raises another question. Is there room to believe in just one God? Not only that, but worship that God as though he is above all others. There are many characters in the Rippaverse who do. Isom, Bloodruth, Betty Brooke, Death Defier, to name a few. How might they rationalize this belief? If you look to Norfolka, Glorious Death number 1, in Asgarth, a young Valadan is being taught about the realms, specifically the human realm. His father, Alfadar, says this: Middengarth, the world of humans, though they favor the Asgarths in appearance, much differentiates us. The duration of your youth will outlast several of their lifetimes. Their mortality shall not be mistaken for weakness. Your capabilities will far exceed the humans. They cannot rival your strength, even as a boy. But there are exceptions. Now, side note, I like the idea that a way you can look at excepts on Earth is that excepts are the exceptions to the human rule. Pretty cool. Now, in the next page, he states that humans are not their enemies, but they do tend to worship them as gods. But Allfather himself does not endorse this. Even more interesting, later in the book, the villain Celicio also talks about the realms, and when discussing Middengarth, or Earth, he says Asgarths are the only beings who go to Earth and accept worship as if they were the Allborn themselves. This is important because it suggests the people of the realms, despite how powerful they are, do not consider themselves gods, and they believe there is one being worthy of worship, the Allborn. I imagine Allborn indicates that this is the source from which all life and existence was born. It's not confirmed, but my theory is that the Allborn appears to be the creator of all existence, the God figure. Perhaps they don't call him Yahweh, but even the realm's most powerful beings believe in an eternal creator. So, on Earth, how does one worship one God when beings with godlike powers exist? The answer might be they know excepts aren't gods. No matter how powerful they are, no matter how high on the Schuster scale they aren't eternal. They aren't all-knowing or all-powerful. They age, they die, they were created, and clearly aren't responsible for the creation of the universe. They may be exceptions to humanity, but they are not divine. All of this paints an interesting picture of excepts and their place in the Rippaverse, not just how they exist and but also how they inform belief systems and the mindsets of the people. As we dive deeper into the Rippaverse, I'm excited to learn more about different types of excepts and powerful beings and their impact on the world. And with that, I think this is probably a good place to end the video. Now, before I head out, I just want to say this. As a Rippaverse fan, I love what Eric and his team have created here in such a short time. The only reason I can make a video like this with any type of depth is because they put out so much material for us to explore and dig into. And I've enjoyed most of what the Rippaverse has released so far, and it's been a fun ride. I hope this universe and this company continues for years to come. Sincerely, I'm rooting for you guys. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.
Yeah, that was a fantastic video. I think you guys heard my sniffling. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I liked all that points that were made. He does get into this idea like that I was getting into quite well. It mentions like, you know, in that mentioning the Allborn. Man, that's something like there was so much stuff going on in Norfolk that I kind of missed that. So I'm glad to kind of watch more stuff like this. That way we can like digest that information. But anyways, yeah, that's a very interesting thing that like you have this idea of there being, like I said, the eternal God that permeates human existence. And that is something that they are aware of, like whether it's in Asgarth, whether it's in Jotunheimel or Nilfgaard or whatever, you know, Dakaris from Nyandala, if I'm getting that correctly now. That's very interesting. And again, that's the question. And like I said, I think he got that. He explained it better than I did. Is that like the question of whether or not a eternal God that creates that is the creator and sustainer of the universe is a fundamentally different question than are there super, you know, there being superpowered beings that have, you know, these ability to perform things that are considered to be miraculous outside like exceptions to humanity. And I think that's like, oh yeah, sure, Jesus could have been just an accept that turned water into wine and did all these things, but he did stuff that was much more than that, and stuff that would imply that he is the creator and sustainer of the universe, right? And I think that's the bigger question to ask, in terms of like why you would have like someone like Isom or Betty or Death-to-Fire believe in the Christian paradigm, because they realize that, they accept that, and then they live their lives by that. And I think that's what plays into it. Although, of course, probably not going to have like a real like philosophical, metaphysical paradigm level discussion in the page, especially for something like Detention Crew. But like, again, it's a really cool thing to think about. But anyways, I'm going to end it here, guys. I got the sniffles, so sorry about that. Hopefully you guys enjoy this episode of Braxcast Live. Joker is out.